The gavel came down at exactly 7:43 p.m. on a Thursday in October, and by 744, Dr. Elena Crosslife, as she knew it was over, not because she had lost anything, though God knew she had lost plenty over the past 6 years. Not because she had made a mistake, though the man currently screaming accusations at her from the top step of the podium seemed convinced she had, but because in the 30 seconds between that first strike of the gavel and the second, she had made a decision, a choice, a line in the sand that she couldn't uncross, no matter how much she might want to. She was going to stop hiding. The Blackwood Annual Prestige Auction was the most exclusive art event on the East Coast of Black Tie Fair, where billionaires bid on Renaissance masterpieces like they were ordering appetizers, where the champagne cost more than most people's rent, where the air itself smelled of old money, desperation, and a particular kind of cruelty that only people who've never had to work for anything can inflict on those who have. Clara had worked the event for 4 years now, first as a junior archivist verifying Providence documents for the less important lots, then as senior archivist responsible for every piece that crossed the block. She knew every painting, every sculpture, every artifact in the Blackwood collection, knew their histories, their hidden flaws, their true values, and in many cases, their true owners. Because the thing that Reginald Blackwood III didn't know the thing that Victoria Blackwood sneered about every time she saw Clara in her oversized cardigan, climbing a library ladder, while Victoria Swan passed in couture, was that Clara wasn't just an employee. She was Clara Eleanor Whitmore, granddaughter of Eleanor Vance Whitmore, sole surviving heir of the Whitmore art dynasty, and the legal owner of every single piece of art in this building, including the Botticelli, that Reginald was about to sell for $42 million to a Russian oligarch who didn't know or care that the Providence documents were forged. If you want to see what happens when a person everyone underestimated finally decides to stop playing small, subscribe to Crimson Whispers. We don't tell stories about people who give up. We tell stories about people who refuse to break. The accusation came exactly 12 minutes into bidding for Lot 47 of Botticelli, the crown jewel of the evening, the piece that had brought out every collector worth mentioning and several who weren't. Clara had been standing in the archive alcove to the left of the main gallery, cross-referencing the Providence files with the original acquisition records she had memorized years ago, when she noticed a discrepancy, a date that didn't match, a signature that was close but not quite right, a chain of custody that had a gap in 1987 that Reginald had filled with a document that looked authentic but felt wrong in a way she couldn't immediately articulate. She had reached for her phone to take a photo of the discrepancy standard procedure, something she had done 1,000 times before when the lights suddenly shifted. The spotlight that had been illuminating the Botticelli swung violently to the left, landing directly on her with the force of a physical blow. And then Reginald's voice, amplified by the microphone system, cut through the murmuring crowd like a knife. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption, but we have a situation." He descended the podium, stepped slowly, deliberately, the way a cat toys with a mouse before the kill. Victoria appeared at his elbow like a well-trained attack dog, phone already raised, recording. The crowd parted instinctively, creating a clear path between Reginald and Clara, gauntlet of silk and diamonds and barely concealed anticipation. This woman, Reginald pointed at Clara, with a finger that trembled slightly, whether from rage or something else she couldn't tell, has been caught attempting to forge Providence documents for our headline lot. An attempt to defraud our esteemed buyers and destroy the reputation of this esteemed house. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that sucked the oxygen right out of the room. Phones rose like a crop of electronic wheat, screens glowing hungry in the dim light. Clara felt the heat of 500 stairs pressing against her skin, the weight of judgment settling on her shoulders like a physical burden. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, hands clasped in front, spine straight despite the humiliation crawling up her throat like bile, eyes fixed on a point somewhere above Reginald's left ear. She would not cry. She would not beg. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. "This is not the first time," Reginald continued, his voice rising with theatrical outrage. "We have documented evidence of tampering going back months. Evidence that this archivist has been systematically undermining the integrity of our collection for her own gain. I have no choice but to terminate her employment effective immediately, and I will be referring this matter to the authorities for criminal prosecution." He held out a sheaf of papers toward her, a confession, pre-printed, pre-dated, waiting only for her signature to complete the frame-up. You have two options, Miss Whitmore. Sign this, admit your crimes, walk away quietly, and ill agree not to pursue criminal charges in exchange for your absolute silence about your time here. Or refuse, and I will destroy you. I will ruin your reputation so thoroughly that no archive, no museum, no gallery in the civilized world will ever hire you again. You will lose everything. Your career, your dignity, your pathetically small life. He was so sure of himself, so certain the head won, that she was just another nobody he could crush beneath the heel of his family's money and influence. He had no idea. Who do you think Clara really is? Drop your wildest theories in the comments. I guarantee 90 of you are wrong. And if you've ever been the smartest person in the room and still got treated like you were invisible, hit that subscribe button. We're building a community of people who refuse to stay unseen, and this story is just getting started. Clara walked out of the Blackwood building at 9:17 p.m., carrying nothing but her canvas tote bag and the leather notebook she refused to leave behind even when security tried to confiscate it. The October air was sharp with the smell of autumn leaves and distant rain, and she welcomed the cold against her flushed cheeks, a physical counterpoint to heat of shame that still burned in her chest. She didn't go home. Home was a small apartment above a rare bookshop in Greenwich Village that she rented for a fraction of its value because the owner owed her grandmother a favor. Home was where she wanted to lick her wounds and regroup and plan her next move. Tonight, she needed something else. Something she hadn't visited in 4 years, not since her grandmother's funeral. Not since she had signed the papers disinheriting herself from the Whitmore fortune in exchange for freedom to earn her own way in the world. The Whitmore mansion stood on Fifth Avenue like a sleeping giant, its limestone facade glowing amber in the streetlights, its windows dark except for the single light she always left burning in the library, a habit she had never been able to break. Even when she had sworn she had never set foot inside again, the key still worked. Of course it did. She owned the place. She let herself into the service entrance, avoiding the main foyer where the portraits of her ancestors hung in their gilded frames, judging her with painted eyes, down the back staircase, past the kitchens and the servant quarters that hadn't been used in 60 years, to the basement level where the real treasures were kept, not the art, which was impressive but ultimately just objects, but the records, the ledgers, the deeds, the truth of what the Whitmore family had built and what the Blackwood family had spent 70 years trying to steal. The private archive was hidden behind a false wall in the wine cellar, accessible only to those who knew the combination of sequence of numbers based on her grandmother's birthday that Clara had known since she was 6 years old and allowed to help organize the files. The room smelled of old paper and leather and beeswax, a scent that triggered such a powerful wave of nostalgia that she had to stop for a moment and breathe through the tightness in her chest. Grandmother, I wish you were here. I wish I could ask you what to do. But Eleanor Whitmore had been dead for 4 years, and her last words to Clara had been clear: earn it, my darling. Don't take what I give you. Earn it. Show them that a Whitmore's worth isn't in the money, it's in the work, in the honesty, in the refusal to compromise. For years of working in archives and basements and dusty storage rooms, learning every aspect of the art world from the ground up, for years of watching the Blackwood steal and lie and cheat their way to fortunes built on her family's collection, for years of staying silent, of gathering evidence, of waiting for the perfect moment to. No, not waiting anymore. She found the file in exactly the place her grandmother had promised. It would be inside the hollowed-out volume of Lazari's Lives of the Artists, 3rd edition, 1720, bound in leather that matched the exact shade of Clara's eyes. The deed was there, original vellum with gold lettering and the Whitmore seal, and the signature of the original Blackwood, found her transferring permanent ownership of all acquisitions to the Whitmore heirs upon proof of fraud. And the clause that made everything possible. In the event that the Blackwood family or their designees are found to have committed fraud, forgery, theft, or any other criminal act regarding the collection said family holds in trust, full and immediate ownership shall revert to the senior Whitmore heir, who shall have absolute authority to terminate all Blackwood employees, pursue criminal charges, and restore the collection to its rightful state. Clara read it 3 times. Then she took out her phone and called the only person she trusted outside her grandmother's memory, Detective Samuel Reyes answered on the second ring. "Whitmore, I was hoping you'd call. I have the proof," she said. "Everything. 40 years of fraud, theft, forgery. The whole thing." There was a pause. "Then how much?" "Billions. Literally billions. Every major piece in that collection. Stolen from artists, from collectors, from my family." She paused. "And am done hiding. Am done waiting. Am going to walk in there tomorrow and take it all back." Reyes was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had a new quality of respect, maybe, or anticipation. "What time?" 9 a.m. The pre-auction preview. All the buyers will be there. All the press. Everyone who needs to see. It'll be there with a warrant and a team. And Whitmore? Yes? Make it dramatic. These bastards deserve to go down in flames. Clara smiled for the first time that night, a real smile. The kind that reached her eyes and made her look like the heiress she had been born to be. "Oh," she said, "I intend to." She spent the rest of the night preparing. Not just the documents, those were ready. Organized in a leather portfolio her grandmother had left her but herself. The transformation that had been 4 years in making, that she had rehearsed in front of a mirror 100 times but never actually executed. The emerald green silk dress had been her grandmother's, designed specifically for Clara's 21st birthday, the one she had missed, because she was working a double shift at the Metropolitan. It fit perfectly now, the way her grandmother had promised it would when you were ready to stop hiding. The diamond drop earrings were older heirlooms from the 1890s, passed down through 5 generations of Whitmore women who had refused to be silenced. The signet ring, worn on her right hand in the European style of an unmarried woman claiming her own status, bore the Whitmore crest of phoenix rising from ashes. Appropriate, really, given what she was about to do. At 8:47 a.m., she walked into the Blackwood auction house through the front entrance to service entrance she had used for 4 years. The employees' door around back where the delivery trucks dropped off crates, and the archival staff slipped in unnoticed. Today, she walked through the revolving glass doors into main lobby, her heels clicking against the marble floor with a sound that turned every head in the room. The transformation was so complete that it took people a moment to recognize her. The archivist in the baggy cardigan, with the pencils in her hair and the magnifying glass around her neck, she was gone. In her place stood a woman who looked like she belonged here, more than belonged, like she owned the place, which technically she did. Reginald was in his office, she was told. She didn't wait to be announced. She opened the door, as secretary gasping, and dropping her phone in, walked in like she owned it, which, again, she did. Reginald looked up from his desk, irritation flickering across his face, then confusion as he took in the emerald dress, the diamonds, the signet ring. Recognition dawned slowly, followed by disbelief, followed by a flush of red that started at his collar and climbed rapidly toward his hairline. "Whitmore," he managed. What is the meaning of this? How did you?" "Sit down, Reginald." Her voice was different, calmer, deeper. The voice of a woman who had spent 4 years learning to be invisible and had decided that invisibility was overrated. "We need to talk about Lot 47 and Lots 12 through 46 and every other piece in this collection that you and your family have stolen from my family over the past 70 years. His face went from red to purple. You can't just, this is my house. My auction. It's my house. My auction. My collection. And you, Reginald Blackwood III, are fired. Effective immediately. Effective retroactively. Actually, considering that you've been committing felony fraud since before I was born." She opened a portfolio, laid out the deed, the provenance records, the 40 years of falsified documents, the paper trail that led directly to his Swiss bank accounts, his offshore shell companies, his web of lies so intricate it would take forensic accountants months to unravel. Reginald's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Victoria chose that moment to sweep into the room. Phone already recording, clearly expecting to find her father victorious over pathetic archivist. Instead, she found her father white-faced and trembling, and Clara Whitmore standing in the middle of his office like she had always belonged there, which Victoria realized with a sickening lurch of her stomach she had. The phone slipped from her fingers. The screen cracked against the marble floor, and for the first time in her privileged, entitled, cruel life, Victoria Blackwood looked exactly like what she was a spoiled child who had just been told there was no Santa Claus. 9 a.m., Clara said, checking her watch. The preview starts in 13 minutes. I suggest you both be in the main gallery. It'll be making an announcement. She turned and walked out, leaving silence in her wake. The main gallery was packed. 500 of the wealthiest art collectors in the world, plus journalists, plus curators, plus rivals, plus everyone who'd ever wanted to see the Blackwoods taken down a peg. Clara stood at the center of the room, in the exact spot where Reginald had humiliated her the night before, and felt the weight of their attention settle on her like a cloak. "My name," she said, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the room without benefit of microphone, "is Clara Eleanor Whitmore. I am the granddaughter of Eleanor Vance Whitmore, founder of the Whitmore Art Institute, and original owner of every piece of art in this building." A ripple of shock went through the crowd. Phones rose. Gasps echoed off the high ceilings. For the past 4 years, I have worked in this building as an archivist, not because I needed a job, but because my grandmother made me promise to earn my place in the art world through honest work, not through inherited wealth. I kept my identity secret because I wanted to be judged on my merits, not my bank account. She picked up the leather portfolio, opened it, let the light catch the gold lettering of the deed. That ends today. Because last night, I discovered that Reginald Blackwood III and his family have been committing systematic fraud, theft, and forgery involving this collection for 7 decades. They have stolen billions of dollars from artists, from collectors, from my own family. They have sold forgeries as originals. They have laundered money through fake auctions. And they tried to destroy me when I got too close to the truth. She turned to face Reginald, who had been forced into the room by Detective Reyes and his team, standing at the back near the door like a prisoner awaiting sentencing. "But here's the thing, Reginald. You forgot to check the original deed, the one that says that if you're ever caught committing fraud, full ownership of this collection reverts to me, immediately, irrevocably, with the authority to fire you, prosecute you, and restore every stolen piece to its rightful owner." She held up the deed. Let the crowd see the seal, the signatures, the truth. "So let me be clear. As of this moment, I am the owner of the Blackwood collection, which will, effective immediately, be renamed the Whitmore Blackwood Gallery, operated with full transparency, ethical provenance verification, and a commitment to the honest principles my grandmother held sacred. Mr. Blackwood is terminated. His daughter is escorted from the premises, and Detective Reyes has warrants for their arrest on charges including fraud, theft, forgery, racketeering, and conspiracy." The room erupted, not with anger, with applause, with cheers, with the kind of cathartic release that comes from watching bullies finally get what's coming to them. Clara stood in the center of the storm, calm and composed, accepting the accolades without preening, allowing herself exactly 30 seconds of satisfaction before raising her hand for silence. "There's one more thing," she said, and her voice softened slightly. "I didn't do this alone. I had help from friends who believed in me when no one else did, from a detective who took a chance on a crazy story, and from someone who taught me that competence is sexier than arrogance, and that the best partnerships are built on mutual respect, not power imbalances." She turned, and there he was, Julian Blackwood, standing in the doorway with an expression she had never seen on his face before: wonder, maybe admiration, and something else, something warmer, that made her heart skip a beat in a way that had nothing to do with the adrenaline of the morning. He crossed the room toward her through the parting crowd, stopped in front of her, looked down at her with those steel-gray eyes that had spent for months making her life miserable with his arrogance and his demands and his impossible standards, and smiled. "I think," he said quietly, loud enough only for her to hear, "I owe you an apology. Several, actually. Started with the fact that I called you a glorified librarian last Tuesday." Clara felt the corner of her mouth twitch. "You did. Twice. And the time I told you that your methodology was amateurish at best. 3 times. And the time I threw your notes in the recycling because they were cluttering up my desk. That one hurt, actually. Those were irreplaceable 17th century provenance records." Julian winced. "I'm sorry. For all of it. I was scared. Scared that my family's name was becoming a joke. Scared that ID spent my whole living in their shadow, authenticating fakes they'd sold as real, pretending not to see what was right in front of my face. He paused. Scared of you, mostly, because from the moment you walked in here, you saw things ID spent my whole life trying not to see, and I didn't know how to handle someone who was smarter than me, better than me, more honest than ID ever allowed myself to be. Clara studied his face, saw the vulnerability there, the cracks of the armor Shed spent 4 months trying to chip away at, and realized with a start that she wasn't angry anymore. That maybe she never really had been at the frustration Shed felt toward him had been masking something else entirely. You're forgiven, she said, on one condition. Anything, help me fix this place. Properly, honestly, the way it should have been run all along. Julian's smile widened into something genuine, something that transformed his face from handsome to beautiful, from arrogant to human. It would be my honor, he said. Partner, he offered his hand. She took it, and in front of 500 witnesses, in the room where she had been humiliated less than 24 hours earlier, Clara Whitmore shook hands with the man who had tormented her for months and felt, for the first time in 4 years, like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. If you made it this far, if you stuck with Clara through the humiliation and the revelation and the reversal and the slow burn romance that almost didn't happen, then you're exactly the kind of person this community was built for. People who believe in justice. People who root for the underdog. People who understand that the most powerful thing in the world isn't money or status, it's the courage to stand up and say enough when everyone else stays silent. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories like this. Hit the like button if you cried when Julian apologized. I definitely did. And leave a comment what's your favorite moment so far. The humiliation, the revelation, the apology, the kiss that's definitely coming in the epilogue. It'll be reading every single comment. And it'll see you in the next story. Stay invisible no more.